Now our wheel's been drying from the work we did in part 1 on this video, drying up by the heating vent overnight. So it's going to be time, and I wanted to do a couple more things to this wheel before we reinstall it. Let me explain. Now whenever I've worked on motorcycle wheels, I've always tried to do some extra little detailing that you didn't notice right away, but then you look at it and you really you do see the difference. Now in the case of the RD, I radiused all the spokes with a grindstone. You don't really see it from immediately, but then after a while when you look at it, or you look next to a stock one, you say, just a little bit different. And it was something I tried on the R1 wheels, where the areas that are hollow inside the wheel, what I did, I painted them flat black with some paint I had left over from a couple of years ago. We painted a special helmet for Glenn that was flat black. I think we still got a little bit of that paint left over. I'll have to look for it. But it does dry flat black, the dreaded flat black. And on the 750 rear wheel, I painted inside here all flat black. But you know, when I did the front wheel, I left it green. I want to paint it flat black. I just like the way it looks. I'm sorry I didn't do it when I actually painted the wheel the first time. As soon as we're finished with the front wheel, we'll come out here, install it, and pull the back wheel off and do the same thing to the back wheel, put that stripe on. Now I always prefer to just do one wheel at a time. I don't like to get both wheels off the motorcycle at the same time, then it just gets to be too much of a job. This is supposed to be a hobby, not a job. And every bike that I've done the wheels on, I've done one wheel at a time. And it doesn't look like it's going to be a riding day in the next couple of days, so there's no reason to rush any of this work. The pond is frozen, the bubbler's going, the snow isn't melting anytime soon. It's a good day to work on motorcycles. This is why I always think I do enjoy riding the motorcycles. It comes winter time. As I always say to Luciano and my other good friends, it's a long winter. And we're just starting our long winter here, so we're going to have a lot of little projects to work on. Get down, have a cup of coffee, and work on those wheels. And as you come in out of the cold, it's a wonderful feeling to come into a nice warm cellar. And we're very lucky we still have, there's still about a spoonful of paint in the bottom of this can. I don't know how many projects, I know Glenn's helmet got done with this, and the R1 wheels, and now we're adding even another project. All from one can of paint. And this is actually flat black paint when it dries. So the first thing is to check this paint out. Make sure it's totally dry. We don't have any, I don't think we have any issues at all. Anytime you paint with an airbrush, you almost never get a run. Puts on so little paint. So anyway, this did come out, I guess, as good as I could expect. And one of the things I like about, I guess, painting wheels in general, is a wheel really defines a motorcycle. Same thing as a hot rod car. And the nice thing is, you can just change the wheels if you don't like it. It's not like when you cut the frame, you cut the back off the frame to make a cafe racer or anything else. I want to load it back on. Well, it's a whole lot different with paint. With paint, the beauty is, if you don't like the color of this stripe, you mask it over again and make it another color. The thing with paint, you're never really married to paint. You're always going out on a first date, because no matter what happens, you can always take the paint off and you can always repaint it, or you can paint right over the old paint. Paint is a nice way to customize something, because even if you don't like it, you can just put it back to the way it was, or you can repaint it, or whatever. Unlike welding and cutting and doing engine work and cutting two-stroke cylinders, where once you do it, the wedding bells ring. Now, by using that fresh roll of tape that we did, you hope you really stack the deck. And again, there's no absolute guarantees in life, especially with doing this kind of work, but at least we stack the deck. I want to peel this tape back carefully, and of course the final tape, I've had this up by the heating vent so it's nice and warm. You always want to have the part warm. A lot of people don't know this, and ask me how I know this the hard way. I left a wheel out in the garage one time. I don't think it was a wheel, it was a part. And it was way below freezing. And I came in and without waiting for the part to warm up or use a hairdryer, I did this and chunks of paint came off. These are the things you learn the hard way. It's like learning about gravity by falling out of a tree. And the whole idea, pull the tape straight back. If you pull it straight back like this, you minimize the chance anything funky is going to happen, and it actually tears the cured paint. So you tend to get a nice even line. And on a fine detail like this, now it's the last part of this, and I'm being kind of careful. And then we'll have one side with the tape removed. And as small of a detail as that is, it's absolutely something that a lot of people will notice. It'll change the look of the motorcycle. Now, also down in here, and this is where all the casting, it's rough in here. I'm not sure why I didn't paint that to begin with. I'm going to have to make some special brushes up with extension sticks and be real careful getting in there that I don't wind up getting paint on here. But if I do, I'll have a Q-tip with some thinner to wipe it right off. And pretty much just take the other side off at the same time. I want to get both sides off, look this over, make sure there's no places I have to touch up, and I'll get started on that black. Now before I go into the painting, if you rub your finger on this, you can feel a tape edge line here. And while the paint is soft, this is what I do. Take a microfiber, a little bit of any kind of polish, even toothpaste will work on this. And I don't want to like do a buffing out operation, but I want to kill off that sharp edge. It's a little detail thing, and while the paint is soft, the first couple of days, the paint is always soft. What's going to happen, I can just kind of blend that edge in. Otherwise, a month from now, I'll feel it. Now I'm looking at this wheel from a lot of angles and where I want to make it black down inside the hub, kind of so it matches the back wheel also. I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to take a paintbrush and put an extension on the paintbrush. Kind of a, well, a little tricky, but we'll get down in there. See what's going to happen. And boy, that makes all the difference in the world. Now it's nice and smooth. What I'm going to do, I have these paint brushes. I put a little stick on the end of them. And I'm going to have to picture in my mind how I want to get down in there. Yeah, I can do it. Columbus crossed the Atlantic. We can paint this. Now, before I start any of these operations, a couple of things that a jar of Q-tips, clean Q-tips, and I have a little bit of, I'm going to put a little in a bottle cap here, in fact, the first time I make a mistake. Because as I'm making a mistake, I don't want it to dry. I want to get it right away. So let me just leave the cap on this loose. This is a low penetrating thinner, so what will happen, I don't want to go in and loosen up any of the paint that's underneath it. It looks like we'll have enough. This is, I mixed up, this is a 4-to-1 mix. So again, this will be tricky. And just like the R1, I can't imagine any super easy way to do this other than to just do it. And it's just going to be a little, this is the most critical thing because this will be where the edge is that you'll actually see. Now once I get that edge, Amazing. Every once in a while, something works out. Because that's the part, and then getting down in there and down in there and down in there. Then I'm going to move it, and then keep spinning it. This is what's nice about having this. To get in there, I can get down this way. The wheel balancer is a must for doing this kind of stuff. Now this is the way I've got one side done now. Just dip a Q-tip in here. Make sure it's not wet. And now I can go right along the edge, and this gives me, well, you can see what comes off. It makes the equivalent of a tape edge without now I just smeared that. So trick is, as soon as you smear it, get a brand new Q-tip. Don't put any thinner on it because you've already got thinner in that smeared paint. You can see up there, there's some, I'm not sure if you can see it. There's some paint that came over the edge. A little bit of Q-tip. Even after the paint dries, you can soften it up. It comes off, just spread a brand new Q-tip. Go in there and pick it up. But you want to use low penetrating thinner, not high penetrating thinner, that's for sure. And that's the best way. You get all the little dots. In the end, it has the look of that you've masked it all off and whatever. But the really nice part about this is now the inside of that wheel, when I'm done with the other side, I've only got half done, is going to be, well, we hope it's going to be more attractive or just a little different than it was. Q-tips are cheap. And I don't know any way, I don't have, I bet Vince does. Somebody that's a real artist has a steady enough hand they wouldn't have to deal with these little edges. And if you do, that's great. But if you don't, Q-tips and thinner is the answer, and just keep throwing those Q-tips away. Now with that black, I think that adds a nice touch. You don't see it, how rough the casting is anyway, and it kind of accents it. Well, it's all in the eye of the beholder. All motorcycle, all beauty. Life itself is in the eye of the beholder. But anyway, this is the key. This is the best tip you can pick up off of this video. You can see how many of them I've used to get the edges nice. But the bottom line is, all the edges here really are pretty nice. And anything that you see, anything that you've dripped, the little spatters or whatever, comes right off. But you definitely want to use low penetrating thinner. Now just be aware, people that don't paint all the time, this can be a problem. You don't want to use acetone, and you don't want to use slow drying, high penetrating thinner, because that can disrupt the newly painted stripe, or even up to some point to the green. Sometimes acetone will attack that paint even after it's cured. That's up under the heating vent now. The only thing left is to reinstall it on a motorcycle, which is pretty much just the reverse of taking it off. And we'll be done with this part of the project. So this time of year we always stay flexible for a lot of reasons, because Karen's always baking and cooking. I don't know what this is, but it's delicious.
Called a haystack.
Haystacks. Oh my God, we have so much stuff. It's a wonder I don't explode over the holidays. But what I decided to do, because it's Circle Cycles. Today is their Christmas party, and I want to just run up and give. This is actually we're gonna give Pete and Kevin, who have been good friends for many years, helped me with several motorcycle projects. Going to donate a nice plate of Karen's cookies to their cause. We're going to run up there right after lunch. So you gave me a choice this Christmas. What do I want? A new Ducati or cookies?
Cookies.
Guess what I got?
Cookies.
No new Panigale. Grammy's cookies. Oh my God. They are good. This is what makes our holiday special, and we hope you enjoy sharing it.
Here I am.
So here's Pete's Christmas party. Karen, this is what you're missing by not coming up to the Christmas party. She stayed home to bake more
Takes up
cookies.
Two parking spaces, 2 parking spaces.
Now we're back from Pete's Christmas party, hanging out with Turbo Steve for a couple hours. Time to get the wheel back on the bike. Everything's dry and ready to reinstall. Now the only thing that's tricky on the reassembly is that the speedometer drive has a little notch in it that has to line up very accurately with a notch in the forks, or else it's at the wrong angle and the speedometer cable winds up rubbing and not being stationary like it should be. But I kind of like the way the black looks inside the rim, and I really like the way the stripe came out. This is the part I was trying to explain. If that speedometer drive is not in that notch, there's no point pushing the axle through, because that cable is going to wind up hitting the caliper. That is really one of the only tricky things. Very easy front end to put together, but that can make you crazy if you don't know about it. Now the trick is to tighten this one up. Once that's set, that holds the axle, and we can do the other side and put that special nut on. And it's certainly a good idea, as I found out the hard way, leave the speedometer cable for last. Otherwise, you really have trouble getting that caliper on and off conveniently. Just can't get any more convenient than that. Well, the next part of our project will be the back wheel. We'll pick that up the next time we have a work session out here in the shop. Hopefully it'll be a little warmer. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.